Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast, the self-publishing podcast for authors. You're in the right place for the best writing, marketing and publishing advice, plus interviews with industry experts and best-selling authors. I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Shah Barrett.
I'm Wendy Vella.
And I'm Trudy J. Welcome.
Hey everybody.
Hello. So this week there's all four of us here and we're very excited to be all back together. And just like the Beatles. And
The whole band's back. We've got the band
back together.
Boy, that's showing your age.
Sorry. Okay. And we thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about what to do when your marketing's not working.
Yeah.
Like you've been working hard at it, you don't know, you think you're doing all the things and you're still not selling books and you don't know why and you can't figure it out. So
I think there's a bit of a trap for young players there. To be honest, I think we tend to chase our tails a bit and decide to go out and go, boom, I'm going to go and do this and do this and do this and do this. And then we can't work out what's working, what's not working. And so-and-so told me they're doing this and they're doing really well. And, you know, like I think you really have to have a plan going into marketing. And I think you've really got to understand it's a long game and there's got to be consistency and stuff like that. So I think marketing plans, things like that. But I just think be very wary of just throwing a whole lot of money at a whole lot of things and then putting your hands in the air and saying it's not working.
Well, what you said was really key there, Wendy, is to know what's working, because if you're doing all the things, you can't, it's very hard to pinpoint which is actually working and which is not. And so therefore, how do you make an informed decision about what to annex and, you know, what to continue with or put more funds into?
It's patience too,
you know. I think the first question is it really not working? Like, I think if we start from there and go, well, what is the goal of marketing, and is it always a direct ROI for every single time you do one action? There should be a book sale, or is it something else?
It'd be nice if it worked like that. If it was like a slot machine, you put a coin in and you got a sale out the other end. But often it could be just getting, you know, brand awareness, like building your name out there, and it might not necessarily result in books sales.
At least not now, right? Like
not right now. That's
result in brand awareness, people getting to know you, and then down the track, more sales.
Yeah, but I think the key is, as Wendy said, know why you're doing it, or before you do it. And so have a little sort of measurement, I think, in your head. So it might be if you want to build your follower number. I mean, it's hard to know your follower number on Amazon because, you know, God forbid they actually tell us that information. But, you know, if you want to build your BookBub followers, for example, you know, that's a measurement. So you can maybe go into a BookBub followers promo specifically. And that's, as Cheryl said, rather than know what's working. So that's a measurable thing. It's not always just about book sales. If you do a lot of other things, the book sales will naturally follow.
I think targeting and niching down as to where you want to go and what your target is and what you want to advertise. Like, you know, do you want to build up your email newsletter followers or whatever? You can't expect to do that and sell books and get BookBub followers and Facebook followers and Amazon followers and all of those things.
Oh, and by the way, write more books.
With one or two ads. You know, like, you know, I've made a million mistakes with advertising, but each mistake has told me that didn't work for me, so I've tried something else. And I think that's, you know, I think understanding why you're advertising is the big key.
So, because I think in the beginning, for a new author with just say one book, if this is you're not necessarily marketing to sell lots more books. You're marketing to get more visibility, to get more people to hear about you, that kind of thing, aren't you?
Yeah,
absolutely, 100%.
I would say as a new author, the goal is to grow your newsletter list. Honestly, I think that's more important than sales. And I remember, you know, 10 years ago, goodness me, maybe 8. But anyhow, a long time ago, when we first were talking with Mark Dawson, and that's what he said, it was more important, you know, the value of a newsletter subscriber was actually greater than a single book sale. Like, it gives you longer term because you can keep reselling to that person if they like your work.
You've got that direct connection to them, right? Like, that's actually more powerful than
Yeah, definitely. And it's very hard, no matter how amazing you are, if you've you know, if the ad fairy has touched you and graced you with her magic juice,
Pixie dust.
that's the one.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get a return on 1 or 2 books, you know, from advertising. So it's really hard to, like, by the time you pay for the advertising, to make a profit off that advertising for 1 or 2 books, or even 3 books, to be honest with you. So it's a numbers game as well.
I think pairing back to start, where do I start? How do we start a marketing plan? You know, what do we do?
A marketing plan also depends on where you're at. I was just thinking that as Shah was talking, it's like your marketing plan for, say, your first 3 books is quite a different beast for someone who's got maybe 5 or more books. And so if you have someone who has 5 or more books and you're sitting there going, I'm not selling and my marketing plan is not working, that's a whole different kettle of fish. So maybe we should break it down into those 2
and
sections.
do a yearly marketing plan, or are we doing a monthly marketing? There's so many options on what do you target. If you've got a lot of series, you know, it's so many different things.
Well, I guess you've got to start with a budget, haven't you?
Yeah, budget's massive.
You have to start with a budget.
Okay, so let's break all of this down. So we're going to write down budget. We're going to write down short and long term, short versus long term, and then we're going to write
measurements,
newbie versus oldie,
non-newbie.
Yeah, we don't use the oldie word.
No, we don't use that in the spa.
Like,
okay,
ever.
Would be
right.
the
So 1 to 3
ones.
books. If you're someone who's got 1 to 3 books and you've just started Amazon advertising and you're going, oh my God, it's not working for me, I can't figure out why. What do we do?
So these are the questions I would ask. The first point of marketing is actually in the product. So the first point of marketing is actually what your book is. How is it packaged? What is the content like? Is it what genre is it in? All of those kind of things. How on target? How are you meeting reader expectations for that?
Pricing.
Are you writing a romance with a tragic ending and pitching it as a feel-good romance? You know, that kind of thing. Side note, don't do that. But the best part of marketing is actually is in your book, honestly, and it's sometimes overlooked. And I see a lot of forums where, particularly with authors, they might have 3 books out, but they might not be in any way related to each other. And I don't necessarily mean a series, but they might be from varying genres, which it's perfectly fine, but that's not uncommon. When you're starting out, you're kind of feeling your way. And again, going back, even though you might have technically 3 books, the return on your advertising, then it's not a natural flow on for the reader to go from this particular genre to that particular genre. So that's what I'm trying to say. It also depends on how they work together, if you like, on the imaginary bookshelf, those books. And it's really, really important that you've got a compelling cover, you've got a really great blurb, and you're hitting those tropes and those reader expectations. So the first point is the book.
And I think, because I still see on a lot of these, like I get, e-reader news today and Bargain Booksy and all those kind of emails coming at me, and some of the covers on these books, they're just still covers out there that are not actually meeting, like I look at them and go, I don't even understand what genre that is.
No.
And I wouldn't look at that and go, wow, I've got to read it,
Yeah.
And it surprises me that in the market that we're in, people are still not trying to get the best cover possible, because to me, it's the first thing that someone sees after the blurb.
I think a lot of newer self-publishers fall into the trap. They want something different. They want a cover that's different, or
stand out.
They want to stand out, or they don't want to stand. They don't want to, be like all those man chest covers, or all those billionaire covers with a guy in the suit, or all those, paranormal romance covers with a moon on the background. And you do want to fit those things. If you're making laundry powder, laundry detergent, and you put a wrapper around it so it looks like an exotic
dishwashing liquid,
or even an exotic coffee, because you're sick of all those bright colored laundry detergents, people are going to walk past on the shelf. They don't know what it is. And it's the same with book covers.
Well,
it can be hard to face
the dish detergent, with coffee on it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
Well, I'd buy anything with coffee on it, but that's probably a bad example.
So 1 to 3 books, we're looking at, have another look at the cover, maybe the blurb, rewrite that kind of thing.
What your sample reads like, what your writing reads like in the samples. There are a lot of backstory at the front, so people maybe are looking at it on one of the retailers and having a quick look at the free sample, and it's just not grabbing them. You know, look at the product itself. That's the
And pricing.
first
I
place.
think pricing's got to be coming into that as well.
Yeah, if you're not in KU, which is where there's a very low barrier to entry for a lot of readers, then look at the pricing too. Having said that, I don't want to undersell books either, and I think the pricing, I think we probably tend to for a lot of us.
Definitely.
But it's look
Don't
at
be
that,
different when you're starting out. Don't reinvent the wheel. Seriously.
No, that's it. I think we all want to, and I think we want to be, but it's
so that's the first place to start.
Yeah, if you wrote a good story,
Absolutely.
then a higher price point is warranted only when people know who you are.
Yeah.
So until that stage, until people have found you, you don't want to be pricing it at the top of the market. You want it to, like Shah said, make it a low barrier for people to get your
And the other thing I think it's worth just want to point out too, it's not always the marketing that's failing, but it also can be the publication schedule. Like if you've got books coming out a year apart as well, that's really hard to pick up steam in the market. And I'm not saying you have to publish one a month or one a week. I'm saying though that a regular publication schedule, particularly if they're in a series, readers want to see that, and readers are very reluctant. I see it all the time in reader groups. They, even if everything's amazing about a book, they love the premise, they love the cover, they love the tropes, all of that, but there's one book and they know that there's going to be a series, they're reluctant to kind of get that because they've been burnt in the past where the author hasn't finished a series. So
100%.
the reader trust thing is quite a tricky thing to overcome, and I think you've got to put up more books in that series, or at the very least pre-orders to show that they're coming up. And even if you give yourself 3 months between pre-orders or whatever,
or even consider what
or longer.
What used to be the old advice, and I mean, maybe if you're a very slow writer and it's yearly, but maybe not, you can't do this, but I'm just thinking, you know, the old advice used to be write 3 books and then put them up, you know, have them all
or novellas,
done.
you know, novellas are there.
Yeah,
you know, there's things you can do.
Or
in
think
between.
of another way to connect with your readers, i.e. build a really strong newsletter between, so that you're connecting with them still regularly between the sales, the publication of your yearly books. I mean, people can do it. It's just
because people who don't write massive amounts in a year are actually still doing quite a good job at it.
We've had them. I mean,
absolutely.
Helen Youre has spoken about this on our podcast. You know,
she's another slow writer.
There's a lot. It's you know, there are definitely some subgenres, particularly of romance, that are very fast turnaround, but you don't have to be like that. It's just, I think what it is as Wendy comes back to consistency, and so you build up a level of trust with potential readers, you know. So I'd look at that too.
Yeah. So you've got the cover right, you've got the blurb right, everything, you're confident that you've got all of that aspect of it done, and you're still not making sales. What else is
I would definitely get advice. That's where I would go to some groups of authors, not necessarily readers, of authors, fellow authors, and just be ready to receive. Just listen. You don't have to agree with it. Just basically shut up and let people comment, and don't go in there, wade in there and defend your choices for your cover. Listen to what they're saying. You might not agree with it. Probably you won't. But if there's a consistent theme of comment coming through of people saying, I don't know what genre this is, that's a really big red flag. So that's what I'd look for.
It can open your eyes, can't it? Somebody says, oh, you know, the blurb just doesn't make sense, or you know, it's not hooking.
Well, we know what we're trying to say. I mean, we all know, we all fall into this, you know, better or worse than anybody else. You know, we're all just human.
And we do think that we're saying it right. Like, it's a number of times when you think that you've said something, but it's because you know it so well that you think it's obvious, and it's really not obvious to the people you speak to.
Or you're trying to be coy in the blurb. That's another one. You don't want to give away all the things in the blurb. Well, actually, you do. You don't have to give away who the murderer is in your mystery, but you have to tell them that there's a murder in the mystery.
Yeah. They want to know why they're reading, don't they?
Yeah,
exactly. use the hooks.
But those are and that's free, right? That's free stuff that you can do. You know, you can actually crowdsource some, you know, or if you don't want to go public or you don't want to do it in a bigger way, then I would reach out to a couple of authors in your same genre and ask if they would be. But again, you have to be, because we've all been burnt, and I've been burnt on this. A lot of people will be reluctant, particularly if they're a fellow author, to give advice because, you know, people have come back in a bad way. So you need to really prove that you are a reasonable person that is open to receiving. You don't have to follow it, but open to receiving in a positive way.
And it's hard to just sit there and have someone tell you something, but you just have to do it.
Particularly if you've spent a lot of money and time on it too, you know, that can be very difficult.
Yes, especially if you paid you know, good money for a good editor, and the editing's letting you down. You know, those things, they do affect you. They do, you know, really rack you up. But sometimes you can't see that until somebody else points it out that actually this is not well edited.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's assume cover's brilliant, editing's perfect, fantastic book. What is and you're trying to do something and you're still not getting the sales that you want. What should, let's think of it this way, what marketing would you expect a 1 to 3 book person to be doing, and what goals would you expect them to have? Can we do it that way rather than
you go, Wendy?
Oh, me? Right, I just was going to go, you go, Shah, you're the marketing guru.
Oh, no, we're all no gurus here, mate.
It's a bit different for me because when I first started, I was very new on the whole setup was new. There's a lot of information out there, but my thing to do would be to take an author that I really respect who writes like me and just have a look at where they are, what they're doing. I would then sign up for a few promo sites and see those emails coming in, see the books in them, then check out on Amazon how well ranked they are and how they're doing, things like that. Because I think you have to be very wary with promo sites. I mean, I started my career using those promo sites. I mean, David, we'll put it in a link.
So when you're saying promo sites, can you just explain what you mean?
Yeah, so David Goffin does a link every year. That's the one. Thanks, Shred. On all the promo sites and how much they cost and how good they are. We'll put a link in the show notes. And so they are basically an email newsletter that goes out to their database for people that have signed up for it and said specifically they're interested in romance, or they're interested in sci-fi, or they're interested in cozy mysteries, or whatever they're interested in. And that email comes out. So you then pay to go on that list. So that's how I started out. I used to target one book each month. I would target 1 or 2 books, reduce them in price, and then go on a list. That was just my way of doing it, because Facebook ads and Amazon ads weren't hugely massive back then, and I was clueless anyway about anything like that. So that's an option. Sign up for a few of those lists to see what there is. I think dabbling in Facebook ads is a great idea, but I think it's a beast on its own, right? It can be, learn Facebook ads if you're going to go in. Just don't go and dabble. I personally think you need to have a direction, you need to have a budget, you need to have an understanding. And the thing about Facebook ads is there is also like the ad library. You can go and have a look in there and see what other people are advertising, you know, and people don't know about that. Again, we can put a link in there for that.
So can you just quickly explain how to get to the ad library? So you go to the page of, say, a famous author, or you
just go on Facebook, log into Facebook, go ad library. It'll take you to ad library, and on there you can search for your favorite author and see what ads they're doing. So,
and you don't copy it word for word or picture for picture, but it certainly give you some really good ideas about, you know, especially if they're doing well, what kind of advertising, how it looks, you know, the graphics and all that. And certainly the hooks and the keywords.
I mean, it's going to come down to budget, right? It's all going to come down to budget.
And I wouldn't start trying to do too much Facebook advertising if you've got one book out, for example. And I wouldn't start comparing yourself to someone who's a big name author and the kind of ads, because I think sometimes the bigger name authors, they can be a little bit less particular about their Facebook ads because they're just using it as one part of a wider marketing schedule.
I think
and
it's
they've already got a name for themselves.
Yeah.
And you are doing it as a not known author.
But I think it's interesting to see what they write, their blurb,
sure.
and their copy, and what they're using for graphics.
Mm.
So if you've got a tried and true author that knows what they're doing, it's quite good to just, okay, well, she's doing it this way. You know?
I'd pick someone who I know is good at Facebook ads rather than someone who's a well-known author, though. I think you'd be careful about, don't you think? Like,
yeah, but how do you know
How do
someone's
you
good
know
at
that they're good
Facebook
at
ads?
Facebook ads?
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I think, you know, I think it's important to just find a few authors, go into the ad library and have it, Google them and see what they're doing. You know, that's the best way to go.
tip.
But it all comes down to budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Time and money.
Time and money.
Yeah.
And that's why those promo sites are a good place to start. And I think the promo sites are rising again. I think they died off for a little while, but that's my take. But I think they're starting to rise again, and there are some good options. There's series promos, there's all sorts of things. And I still use them. I know Share does. You know, and I think they're a good way to dip your toe in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about newsletter? Do we start a newsletter early on?
We hope you've already started
Heck
it.
yes.
When your first book goes out. Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
You haven't started your newsletter, that's your first task of the day.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most important thing, apart from your books, that you will own, is your newsletter.
And and the thing about the newsletter is that once you get a substantial amount of people on your list, or not even that, some people will take it. Otherwise, you can do some swaps.
Yeah.
Free marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of what your goals should be when you are 1 to 3 books, should we be expecting to sell 1 million copies of our book, or what are our goals?
I would say that your goal is visibility, and would go for, if you've got 1 to 3 books and they've ticked all the boxes as we talked about in terms of the product, then the goal is visibility over profit. And I would say at this point is when you can, if they're in a series, or if they're the same type of book, if it's a standalone genre, for example, I don't know, dark romance, maybe it's standalone, but you've got 3 of them, that's when you can start playing with the pricing strategy particularly for the first book. And this is where I would be giving away as many as possible, or 99 cents in it. If you're in KU, that takes a load off, but you can still run free promos. You know, you got your free, what is it? I'm a bit out of the loop. Is it 5 days every 3?
5 days for free, and it's 9 or 10 days for the Kindle Countdown, which will reduce your book to 99 cents. But instead of you only getting your 35% royalty, it bumps it up to about 67%.
So if I had so depending on the genre, if I was going to put my money anywhere, it would be applying for a book pub on either free first book or a 99-cent book. That's what I would be doing, over spending money on Facebook ads. Like, you have to spend quite a bit of money on Facebook ads to learn Facebook ads if you're doing them yourself, if you haven't already done them. That's where I'd go first. If you can't get BookBub, then I would go for free Booksy, bargain Booksy, you know.
Ready for the Romance, Robin Reed.
That's when I would do what Wendy's doing, and I'd do a raft of them over a several-day period, depending on it's free or 99, and I would almost like relaunch it. So if you've got 3 books up, chances are they've been up for a wee while. I would be putting it up on the book review sites, like as in you give away a copy to get a review. Make sure you've got enough reviews. I would say about 10 is pretty good. You just want some stars on there just to show that people have read it. I would be reaching out to other authors, like Wendy said, and doing going into like round robins or newsletter swaps. Even if you haven't got many people on your newsletter list, you might not have any. Sometimes if you've got a really great looking book from the outside, then they'll give you a chance to have to join in. Like that can happen as well. Book funnel promos. I'll be doing as much as I could to get eyeballs on that first book and know that it was a loss leader, just like all the CPG companies do. CMPG companies do to offer you a free taste test, and you and if that horrifies you, the idea of it, then it's going to be a harder road to hoe.
I think the thing is, you've got to just remember to have your second book up for pre-order. That's going to be in the back, so they're going to pre-order that on the back of
but I was talking if you've already got 3 books up, then they can already go to that. So make sure those links are there. So you're making money, and it might not be, you might not even make money out of this promotion, but what I'm hoping you've got is, like Wendy said, if you've got 3 books up, then you've got a pre-order for the 4th one coming out right in the back. People will read through, and even if they're in KU, you'll still get page reads, even if it's free, which is weird to me. But
and the thing is, if you're advertising your first book free, for say 99 cents, and you think you're not getting many downloads, you have to understand also the download you're getting, you might be getting read through on the other 2, but I don't think quite often authors will take that into account. Working out what you get per read through of your series or of your 3 books, that's, I remember Mark Dawson saying that. He said people don't understand. They calculate on that first book, but it's actually the whole series that you want to calculate on. And if you're getting read through, if people are signing up for the pre-order for the 4th, then your ads may be working. But you've got there's a lot of little variables to take into account when you're advertising, especially if you've got more than 1 book.
All of it is visibility and in some case getting yourself so visible that almost word of mouth can take over as well. Like, you can't get word of mouth, you can't get someone telling their best friend about this fantastic book until that first person knows about it, and everything you're doing is just allowing people to find out about your book. And it's just really hard to do that with just 1 book, and it's your first book and you're an unknown author.
It's really hard to do that without any kind of promotion or advertising these days. It just is. You'll get some visibility through Amazon in that first 30 days of publication, and then after that, you've just got more and more books, and it's slowly sinking down. And kind of when you've had the books out for a few months, basically they're like paper darts that are sitting on the ground, right? They might be the best looking paper darts ever, but they need some kind of air, and you need to flap underneath them to get them going. And so I would say BookBub would be my number 1 first priority.
I think that if you're talking 3 books, that one really, really good promotion to do is Written Word Media, and they do the free booksy one. But if you you could do the free booksy, which is cheaper. Then there's also a series promotion, which is a bit dearer. And with the series promotion, they not only promote that first book for free, but the other books in the series. So you could have as many books as you like, but we're talking only if you had 3. But my biggest tip, I think, would be to have two things of free content that would be considered reader magnets. Now, one of them could be a reader magnet for your newsletter. So when people sign up, they get this free, whatever it is, short story, prequel, or whatever. But then also another free book. If your sales are really not doing well, then that would become your prequel to put up actually on all the sites for free, so that your other 3 books can remain as price. And you've got to do the covers the same, everything's got to look the same, so they know that it does belong to that. But I think that way, then if you want to stay in Kindle Unlimited, which is the subscription service through Amazon, you can keep those 3 books in there, but you can have that first book at maybe 99 cents. But you've also got this free magnet that you can put free wide. And although you would think that if you put 1 book on another platform, that they wouldn't then go into KU and read it, I don't think that's necessarily true. That's probably a high percentage of truth in that, but I think that having a book free in other places can't do you any harm. It can be on your website, it can be everywhere, and you can use it for your swaps as well. So it's just so I think 3 books can take you a long time to write, but a couple of things to give away for free, not necessarily. And especially if you you haven't got time to get that 4th book out or whatever, I think this is a really good way to boost visibility.
And I think bonus epilogues, right? the same thing.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
bonus epilogues on at the end of your book. Sign up for my newsletter and get a bonus epilogue.
And if you're doing like what I've been doing lately in my newsletter is a chapter a week of a book, and it's for me it's a bit easier because it's a book that I kind of had written. I wrote it years ago, so I'm having to fix the chapters as I do them. But you could sort of write really short chapters of some, just giving a sample of your writing. Maybe
I've been doing that in both my newsletters this year.
Yeah, and it's just, they do, and I get a lot of click-throughs and things like that. The other thing I've been doing in my newsletter is I created a character who discovered, quote marks, my reader magnet, which is essentially a group of short stories and things like that, and I tell stories of her, which is a bit random, and I'm not 100% certain that it's how it's working precisely, but I have fun, and it's just something a bit different.
And you've got to give it time, right?
Yeah. You what?
And eventually you'll have all this content that you could perhaps put into a book.
Like I feel like eventually I will write an actual story, like a proper something about this Fleur Beau, I can't remember her name, whatever her name is. And because she's a magicologist, and she fits the profile for the kind of characters that I write. And that's kind of part of it. So just something like that. If you're someone who's writing slow, or you feel like you can't get a full book out, maybe there's just things like that you can put inside that newsletter that can help and then keep that flow going.
With regards to promo as well, I think promo stacking is a good way as well. Like if you're running 5 free days, again, why are you advertising? But if you're advertising a freebie or a 99 cents, then promo stacking is a great way to do that. So go into 3 or 4 of those sites. I mean, bearing in mind BookBub, if you get one, is very expensive, but it is worth it. But promo stacking, so you have sort of 3 or 4 ads within sort of a few days, so that then you're stacking and you're promoting that book over 3 or 4 different email newsletter signups, and that works well.
And that's lifting your rankings as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
but again, I wonder whether is that something that you would try and do? You wouldn't do it with one book necessarily.
No, but you're 1 to 3 we're talking about, aren't we? So if you're 1 to 3,
and they're linked, and they're not 3 different.
Yeah, unless you're doing with one book just to get newsletter subscribers, which is a valid thing as well. It depends. I would say it's quite genre dependent, but absolutely. I think if you go into it knowing you're aiming for visibility over profit, I think that's probably the mindset I would take, and obviously spend what you can afford to lose, because you're not going to get it back. It's not $1 in and $2 out, unfortunately.
And we've worked out that if having one book as opposed to 5, you're going to promote differently and market differently.
And I think and just honestly keep writing is really important as well. And just also, I think, we're a business, and I've been involved in startup businesses pretty much all my life. And it's just the reality that you don't usually turn a profit as soon as you open the doors on your business, certainly not in the first year, or very often the first 3 years. So it's part of being when you're a self-publishing author, you're a publishing business, whether you like it or not. And I would, I think it's a lot of it's a mindset thing as well.
I think dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, making sure the book is great, everything's set up for your Facebook page, your website, your email newsletter, all of those things. Those are your first go to, and then you start planning what you want to do for growth.
And I would think about where you're spending your time and energy too, in terms of so yes, I think, have your Facebook author page or your Instagram account or your TikTok, depending on your genre. But your time is best spent, I think, understanding what the market is. So really reading in your chosen genre and following what the top sellers are doing, particularly the top indie sellers. But more so than, say, posting on Instagram 5 times a day, that feels like that you're doing something, but actually you're not really moving the needle. You're just not. Your time is better spent, I think, personally, writing the next book and doing some really targeted advertising, like Wendy and Cheryl have already said. Pick something first and get good at that rather
I
than
think it's
trying
easy to
do
get
everything.
overwhelmed. You can get overwhelmed
and it's
so
so
easy.
easy to throw money because you're like,
So
oh
easy.
gosh, it's the end of the month and I've sold 5 books and I really wanted to sell 10 books, so I'm going to spend $100 here. That's not going to.
And I also think expectations. Reality is, I should say, that most authors, when they start out, they're not going to sell hundreds of books. Like if you're doing double digits, you're doing well, right? You know, that's the reality. You know, and we know that we have some mostly incredibly successful authors on this podcast that are selling, you know, thousands and tens of thousands, but they've usually been doing this a long time, or they're doing it in a different way, maybe the subscription model, which is what we've had with Amelia Rose on previously. But most authors starting out, you're not going to be selling hundreds and hundreds of copies of each book when you start. You're just not.
It's when you think of, say, someone like Amelia Rose, right? She didn't start immediately doing Patreon. She was on Wattpad and created an
giving
audience,
away everything free. See, visibility,
busy creating content rather than doing all the things,
and then was able to move to Patreon. I sort of think maybe someone, and even like, so for example, Stephanie Holmes, who we've had on, she found a genre that was hot. She was looking around, found reverse harem when it first came out and became a thing, and got in there early. And then she was doing like sort of, you know, she found a couple of hot niches and then put books out in those niches and did really well from kind of not a lot of visibility in that niche. But it was because she was already an experienced author. She had already done the research. She already knew and understood how to write in those genres. You know, like there was a definite a lot of groundwork that she had to put in. And I think a lot of times, like, people listening to this and go, oh, but there's this other author who wrote just one book and then they suddenly became famous and I want to be that person. But you'd have to like almost guarantee there's always a backstory to those.
It's tougher out there now than it's ever been.
And can I just, it is, that's it.
There's
it's a mature market now.
I mean,
there's a lot more books.
I don't know, 5, 6, I don't know how many books out. And I would earn a really good living now, but geez, I tell you what, she's been a battle to get there.
Yeah. Nobody's just rocking up with the wheelbarrow full of gold every week.
I've been working 12, 13-hour days, and you know, like and I've chased my tail so many times it's not funny. But it's, you just stop and lately
you've
I've
also
stopped
taken punts into things as well. You've gritted your teeth and spent money where you're like, ugh, you know, like you have. And that's
no, but I think also I'd like to think, and I think she's a bit like that, me as well. We're not precious, and we are precious. Like, don't get me wrong, we're absolute gems,
precious
but
jewels.
But what I'm saying is, if someone said something to me that I respected, I would listen to it and probably take it on board. You know, like if someone said to me, that's the worst cover I've ever seen, I would die and wither internally. But I would go, well, why? What's your recommendations and what to change? If it was someone I respected, it's the same as Blurb. I mean, I've gone to Cher before and said, what do you think about this? And she's gone, not so much, and changed it or something, you know, and same with me with her. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, this is a business. For you to grow in this business, you've got to get it right. And to get it right, you have to take advice from the people who know how to do it.
Great. And I also just pointing out on the one hit wonder or the one series wonder as well, that you will often see, you know, online, very often that author has other pen names or has had other pen names that maybe have, you know, performed or not performed. You just don't know. So I think don't take things just at face value, and don't measure yourself against somebody or a business that you don't know what's behind. You just don't. So I think you just kind of keep your eyes on your own paper, be aware of what's going on, but really look at it. And I think, you know, I'm turning into Trudy here, but a lot of it goes back to mindset.
Absolutely. And you're a publishing house. I mean, if we were, my first book was traditionally published, I did faff all with that. I basically said, here's my book. Could you please market that and do what you need to do? Whereas now, we have to do everything.
Yeah.
The writing is just a small percentage of what we actually have to do. So,
and that's the reality, isn't it?
You know?
Yeah, that's the reality.
Yeah, that's the reality.
So
but
let's
you don't
move
have to
on.
do all the things. So what about if somebody's feeling overwhelmed? Where would you start?
who are you
Just
talking
pick
to?
one.
Anybody.
Oh,
Just pick one.
yeah, just pick one and
Pick
start
one.
from there, and don't do all the things all of the time.
And in fact, I think trying to do all of the things all the time is a mistake. I think
Mhm.
most of the people that we've had on the podcast, they tend to have one thing that they're really good at, and everything, you know,
Focus.
like they'll be the Facebook ads person, or they'll be the Amazon ads person, or they'll be
Exactly.
the subscription person, and
Yep.
and you'll find that they often don't do a lot of different things. They've
And it's what they enjoy doing, you know, it's what naturally fits them. I think trying to fit, do what feels
And what works,
what
Yeah.
works
because
for
it's
you.
not going to work. Everything's not going to work for everybody.
And you
Yeah.
cannot work
As well.
so hard at this that you can't have a life. You know, like I think the thing for me was I chased my tail doing Amazon ads, so many things all the time. I was working at 9. My husband said to me, "You got to stop. You're just going to burn out." And that was the
Yeah,
truth of
that's
the
true.
matter. And then I was just like, okay, pare it back and focus on one thing that works for you and see how that goes. And that was it. And I didn't lose any money over that. And I got a lot more sleep.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? How you think that you chase your tail and you're working these long hours, and then you pull back and it doesn't affect
Yeah.
your income or anything.
No.
Yeah. So
We're crazy people.
I think we should quickly move on, and just if you're someone who's got 4 to 10 books, let's say,
The world is your
and you-
oyster.
Yeah,
the world is
exactly.
your oyster.
Go you, can I just say?
Hopefully they're in a series or some kind of connected
Please let them
books.
be in a series.
Please let them be in a series. If they're not, you're making
That's
it
okay.
harder.
It's okay. It's just a little bit harder, a little bit trickier.
Yeah. And your marketing, but you don't feel your marketing's not, you feel it's not working, or it's the marketing you're doing is not selling books. What then? What's happening?
Well, you got to go back to basics and work out why.
Mm.
Are you chasing your tail and putting a little bit into everything?
Are all your books in different genres? Because that would be really hard for a reader. You know, if they really don't read horror, and you've got a couple of horrors and a couple of romance and a couple of sci-fis and
all under the
cozy
same
mysteries.
pen name.
If they are all the same series, then you need to check read through. You need to check if someone's buying one, they're buying all 7 or whatever, all 4. How many? 4? You know, so I think that's another thing. Your failure, you see yourself as a failure, but are you selling? If someone picks up the first book, are they actually reading the rest of the books? Because that's a win.
Yeah.
Or is there a disconnect between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 or whatever?
Yeah. And we had Zoe York on, and she talked about that, like having a series, and then she didn't lead with her best book and lead with the book that was the most popular trope. And so she was leading them in with kind of an off genre trope that didn't get the read through. And as soon as she switched that up, that changed. And
exactly, Kate Nolan said the same thing.
You had, like, I had a novella was my third book, so I had 2 long books and then the third novel, and people hated that. Like, they don't want the novella to be the third book, they want it to be
cheated because they didn't get as much.
cheated. or different sex levels or spice levels. Like, if you have a really sweet book in your first one and then the second one's all about the sex, then that's gonna affect, you know, like people.
And if all 4 books are standalone, then and you notice the reviews on the 4th book are better than the reviews on the first one, then start promoting that 4th book hardcore. That's the one you want to go for. That's the one you want to do your 5 free days for. That's the one you want to put on the promo sites. That's the one you want to try for BookBub. People have a little bit of a thing that they're fixed on their first book being the one that they need to promote. My 5th book in one of my series has got the red, and in actual fact, it's quite often the 3rd, 4th that do the best. So often I'll take one of those and go, okay, that's obviously the one people like. I'll do that as a freebie. It's a taste, it's a lead in, it's stuff like that, you know.
I think the first thing I would say is know your numbers, know your data, and I am, math scares me, and so does Excel, but you've got to know which is your best selling, even if it's, you know, 5 copies versus 1, it still means that that's 5 times more popular. So know what your best selling book is, reverse engineer it. Why is it the best selling book? And this is where I'd really get advice. This is where you would actually ask some respected, an author or authors, or that people in the business that understand how to sell. what your portfolio looks like in terms of product. And I'm using that deliberately because that's what you've got products. So if you've got 4 to 10 products and they're not selling at all, then you need outside advice as to why they're not selling. So you can join us at Spa Girls Podcast. Patreon.com/Spa Girls Podcast.
Well,
and we'll be nice. We'll be pleasant.
But that is true because you not only get our advice or our take on things, but you also get all the other members.
We call our little group our self-publishing superstars, and it's a mastermind group, and it is this, and it is absolutely this. It's collective wisdom, collective thoughts. You can take it or leave it, but I think you do need to have somebody, and it can be something really obvious, as Wendy and Cheryl have said. It could be alternating, like people are confused because you've got some suspense, some cozy mystery, and some werewolf romance. Like that can be hard to see. It's also understanding how people buy books, and so how they're seeing things, as a reader perspective. And I think it's good to have people coming cold, as in they don't know you or don't know your books, and so it's easier to approach it as a reader. Because I
think thinking outside the square is the thing too, a little bit. Insofar as if we move on to say you've got 4 to 10 books, right, and 2 series of 5, then I think like if it's quite good to take one from each series. Say you've got a set of Bad Boys, or you've got a set of Enemies to Lovers, or and put them together in a box set, and that gives you another product, right?
Exactly.
And you cover them and you go Bad Boys, Enemies to Lovers, romance.
And then you take the first book from each series and you put them together in a little book bundle, and now you've got another product, and that's just a taster, and you could give that one away for free.
And then you can actually promote those. So those are more things to promote on Book Club or promotion sites or wherever you advertise. But and you only have to put them up for a few months if you want it. Same thing coming into Christmas. Okay, I'm going to put that one. They've got a little Christmas theme to them. Christmas Bad Boys, Christmas Cowboys, whatever, and get a cover made with a bit of holly on it. And
that's why Cheryl's eyes lit up when we said 4 to 10 books, because it gives you more options to do these things. It's like you're building, one of those Jenga towers, right? If you've got more little pieces to play with, then you can do more cool designs, kind of thing. So.
And I would also say that when you are doing marketing, and Wendy was touching on the promotion sites that are a little bit smaller and a little bit cheaper, easier to get into, you don't do the same ones every single month.
Yeah,
because you're now targeting the same readers. If you do that, you want to spread it out, and you want to, like I say, the word media is one of my go-tos for a particular book. I would not do that in between 3 months. So I do 1 month,
give a little bit of
3 months
space
down the track to try it again.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So if you've got 4 to 10 books, and you've got multiple options, so
you've got a lot more to play with. 4 to 10 is a really exciting number,
and it's 4 to 10 products that you can turn into, depending on how long the book's been out. First 3 in a box set. Obviously you've got to give them some time, and those sort of things. Grow those products.
And I know, like, I've got a really good example from a friend of mine who she went to RAM one year and heard one of the speakers talk, and the only thing she changed, as far as I'm aware, between 1 year and the next was that she started doing regular promotions. She said, once a month I'm going to promote one of my books, and she did it. She got a bargain book sale or a whatever ENT once a month, picked a different book every month, like wasn't the same book every month. And that year she tripled her income, and that was the only thing she did differently. And she might have spent a little bit more on advertising, but she earned way more income. And so that's, if you're not telling anyone about your book by getting it out there on those kind of promotional things, then
and a side effect of that, of giving away a free or a cheap book, more eyes are on it, you're more likely to get reviews provide social proof. So it's kind of like a win-win all the way, even if you didn't quite get your money back on that promotion, you may have gained other, followers.
It's like trying to just, turn the heat up under a cold pot on the stove kind of thing. It's just, you just want to keep it, you need to warm it up first. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think we've pretty much covered off, have we?
I think so.
Yeah.
Is that us, Trudy? Is that our
I
question?
mean, there's so many more things we could talk
Oh my
about.
gosh,
so
I
many
know,
more things, but
right?
I
Yeah.
think I would just say my final thing would say that you're not alone. Nobody gets this right, first off. None of us do. And you know, just seek advice, share with other authors, listen, but understand that, you know, everybody's doing the best that they can, and we're all figuring this out as we go along. Nobody gets it right.
I just think really just have a good look at what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're chasing your tail, then you need to stop and just take 1 or 2 things and think, once you know you've got the best book you can have to promote, then slow down and then just work at it from a, you know, logical point of view.
Yep.
And decide on a budget and stick to it.
Yep.
Be open and curious. Don't be closed and defensive.
Yeah.
Just look at it like,
What
can I
business?
do? Yeah.
And sometimes books just hit. Sometimes they just hit, you know, and we've had authors on here that they're like, you know, man, if I could just, I'm not quite sure what it is about that book, even though, you know, everything is on the surface the same as these other ones.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just hit and sometimes they just miss. I think there is, I mean, I don't like to use the word luck, but I do believe in fortuitous timing of things. And if you happen to be releasing a book in a particular genre or trope with something that's just hit, you know, in the movies or on Netflix or whatever, sometimes it just hits. So little bit of sprinkling of magic
is
just
setting
helps.
yourself up for success, right? Or setting yourself up for
Absolutely.
luck.
I think you mentally got to go into, I mean, I've never been a huge believer in the mental side of things until I started doing it.
Yeah.
And having that really good mental mindset to sort of set yourself up and think, well, this is going to work. I'm going to go into this and I'm going to give it everything I've got. Going in with, I'm not spending too much money. Yeah, I'm going to spend too much money.
I agree. I think
open
that
yourself
energy
up a little bit.
It transfers into your, and I mean,
I'm not a woo-woo like Shah, but she's.
I'm a woo-woo, and I think if you're sitting there going, oh God,
listen to
here we
these
go
four.
again,
What do they know?
making more Amazon ads, you know, this isn't going to work or whatever. I genuinely think that is not setting yourself up for success in that way. So find something that you can feel excited about. If you don't think about it, the advertising or whatever it is you're doing, think about the joy that you're giving somebody else through reading your book. Try and get that energy up. There you go. I'm saying
perfect.
Nice.
Awesome. Energy up.
Energy up.
Thoughts down.
And then come and join us at patreon.com/SpaGirls podcast. And if you join at the $10 per month tier, you get us. You get us to give you honest opinions
and advice.
And join us.
Yes.
In
awesome.
our Facebook.
All right. Well, I think that's that's the wrap. Another episode of
That's
the podcast. Yeah. Where can we be found? We just found at
found
Patreon.
Found us SpaGirls podcast
all over town.
And if you are listening to this on a podcast, we would so appreciate it if you'd leave us a review, because it helps us get found just like books.
There you go.
So I would really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening to another episode of the SpaGirls podcast. We'll be back again next week, but for now, goodbye.
Take care. Bye.